At the beginning of the 1900s in the United States, the large skyscrapers were being built in this city that is so representative of New York. At that time in Mexico, the most emblematic monuments of the country were being built, including the Angel of Independence. In an area not far away in the Guerrero neighborhood, a man of approximately 40 years old was selling bread in a small stand where he arrived with a basket on a bicycle. This is one of the stories that will leave you thinking about your current life and knowing if you are doing the right thing or not. Once upon a time, the story begins like this. Mexico City, early 1900s. Legend has it that there was this baker who only arrived in the afternoon around 6 p.m. and who usually left after 11 p.m. He sold walnut bread. He assumed that since there were many neighborhoods in the Guerrero neighborhood of Mexico City, many people who came home from work were going to buy bread for dinner, and in this way, he could sell his walnut bread. This man spent years selling in the same area always. As we said, he arrived at 6 in the afternoon and left after 11 at night. Curiously, this baker man rarely sold any bread. People coming home from work, especially parents, were already arriving with bread in their hands from other larger bakeries. And certainly, the people who came to buy bread from this man rarely bought it again, because the bread was not good, to tell the truth. The baker man would prostrate himself on a pole in the corner and put up a small sign that said, "Delicious walnut bread." Even so, the residents of the neighborhood, where there were many neighborhoods, it was a lower class area. The price of the bread was a few peso cents, so it wasn't expensive and it was an acceptable price. Even so, the baker man, who was often seen leaning on a pole with his 2 baskets of bread, sold very little. The years passed and this man, although there were days when he did not always go, was regular, and we saw him very often during the week. The point is that the baker never stopped frequenting the place. 10 years passed, and the baker who initially sold in his 40s was now beginning to turn into an old man who was over 50 years old. Despite the years, he socialized with few people. Some stopped to greet him more than to buy from him, or to wish him good afternoon or good night. But the man continued and continued coming to sell. No one explained how and why he continued selling. Maybe he was content with the little he earned. And in this way, the baker man could support himself and barely survive with the few sales he had. To tell the truth, no one knew. Time passed again, and the man was now an old man over 60 years old. Every time he was hunched over, his expression was tired, almost resigned that selling one or another bread, even if it wasn't much, was enough. No one knew if he had a family, children, or wife. But he was always seen selling bread, on the same corner and leaning on the same pole. What's more, he didn't even scream. "The bread, buy your bread, not bread."
Yes.
No, he just put up a little sign where it said "Delicious walnut bread." Over the years, the only notable change in his small stand, besides his more tired baker's appearance, was the change of sign that said "Delicious homemade walnut bread." Time passed again, and after a little more than 20 years, the baker was not seen again. He simply didn't arrive one day, and no one ever saw him again. Upon learning this story, we asked ourselves an inevitable question. Who was the baker? Why did we never hear more about him?
What happened?
And above all, most importantly, why did Mr. Baker never change? Have you never innovated? Have you never changed anything in your small business, selling bread? Why didn't he sell coffee? Why wasn't it set in the morning? Why didn't he make different bread? How is it possible for a person to spend their entire life always doing the same thing, in the same way, all the time? As if it were a machine. Many times this sad story of the baker man is the same as that of many people around the world, who spend decades in a single job, in the same activity that never grows, never earns more. They only survive with what they do, and in that way, they conform. They do not live, they survive, and they do not have the willpower, the intention to take that step and change their life once and for all. If you know someone like this, or if this story is even your case, we will tell you the secret of many entrepreneurs who, knowing their success story, have changed their lives. That secret is called a step into the void. Taking a step into the void means taking a risk without knowing what will happen, with fear, uncertainty, however you take that step, but take it. There are many cases of the most successful people in the world who had to take that step into the void, not once, but several times. Steve Jobs was a child given up for adoption, who since he was a child made a living cutting his neighbors' lawns, and who, despite many adversities, trusted that everything would improve, but always doing new things, never stagnating in a single activity. Henry Ford, a farm boy who was orphaned as a child, and at the age of 16 took that step into the void and did not stay on the farm to milk cows, but went to Detroit in search of work, where he took a job as a mechanic's apprentice, and the rest was history. In every successful entrepreneur, we find this pattern of behavior. They take steps in a vacuum, they take risks without being sure of what will happen. The point is that they take risks, they assume new responsibilities. We would spend hours telling you the story of how every millionaire in the world has done the same thing. Take steps in the void. But the intention of this story is not to tell you the stories of those successful people, but to tell you why you do what you do in your life, which does not allow you to take that leap into the void, which is what is stopping you. There may be many excuses, children, family, time, but none of that is true. The only thing that keeps you from taking that step into the void is one reason. And that reason is the fear. There is a phrase that perfectly exemplifies what we are telling you. Jordan Belfort, a former stockbroker, says, "The only thing standing between you and your goal is the story you keep telling yourself about why you can't achieve it." We hope this story has been inspiring in your life. Thank you for subscribing and activating notifications. If you like this video, like, comment, and share. Until the next video.